You have probably been around someone who seemed to carry a different kind of weight. Not the weight of authority imposed from the outside, a title, a position, a uniform, something different, something internal. A person who did not need to raise their voice to be heard, who did not need to explain themselves constantly to be respected, who could sit in silence without discomfort and in conflict without being destabilized. And you noticed something unusual about how other people responded to them. They listened more carefully. They spoke more thoughtfully. The dynamic in the room was different, not because anything forceful had happened, but because of the quality of presence this person carried. You were observing something the Stoics spent their entire philosophy trying to cultivate and describe. They called it autarkia, self-sufficiency, the state of a person who does not need the world to confirm, validate, or applaud them in order to remain completely stable in who they are. This quality, genuinely quiet, genuinely powerful, genuinely independent of circumstance, is not a personality type you either have or do not have. It is an architecture, and like all architecture, it is built deliberately, piece by piece, through specific choices made consistently over time. Today we are going to explore how that architecture is constructed, not as an abstract ideal, but as a practical philosophy that you can begin applying in the specific moments of your actual life. Welcome to Master Your Mind, where ancient philosophy becomes practical mental strength. Let us build. The first layer, building the pause. The foundation of all quiet power is the pause, not the dramatic pause, not the theatrical moment of silence designed to project confidence, the genuine pause, the real, practiced, earned ability to create space between what happens to you and what you do about it. This sounds simple. It is one of the most difficult things a human being can learn to do consistently, because the nervous system does not want to pause. It is designed for speed. The threat arrives, the response fires, the stimulus lands, the behavior follows. This mechanism served us well for most of human history, when threats were physical, and the delay between perception and response was the difference between surviving and not. But the threats of modern life are almost never physical, and the same mechanism that once protected us now operates in contexts where speed is not an advantage. The provocation at work is not a predator. The critic online is not a threat to your physical safety, but the nervous system does not distinguish. The threat signal arrives and the response fires, and the behavior that results is reactive, imprecise, and often counterproductive. The Stoics built the pause through a specific practice they called the premeditation, the deliberate, repeated rehearsal of remaining steady under pressure. Not just the intellectual understanding that composure is valuable, but the actual practiced experience of holding the response back. Every morning, Marcus Aurelius sat with the anticipation of the day's provocations, not to dread them, but to prepare for them, to rehearse the response that reason would choose, rather than the response that emotion would produce automatically. The result of that practice, applied daily over years, is what you observe in the person who seems to move differently. They are not unmoved by the world. They feel what anyone would feel. They have simply built a pause that is wide enough to hold the feeling until reason can evaluate it. And from that evaluation, rather than from the automatic fire of emotion, the response emerges. Build the pause, not once, daily. Every time you catch yourself about to react automatically and choose instead to wait, you are laying another layer of the foundation. The second layer, the economy of speech. The quiet person speaks rarely, and when they speak, every word carries weight precisely because there are not many of them. This is not a social strategy. It is a natural outcome of a different relationship with what language is for. Most people use speech the way most people use energy, without much consciousness of where it is going or what it is producing. Words flow because words are available. Opinions are offered because the space to offer them exists. But the person who has developed the economy of speech has a different criterion for speaking. Not, do I have something to say? But, does saying it serve anything beyond the immediate impulse to say it? That is a demanding criterion. and it filters out an enormous amount. The defensive response that would prove you are right but escalate the conflict. The explanation of your plans that would produce validation but dilute your urgency to execute them. The opinion on a matter that does not involve you, offered because the silence felt uncomfortable. When those are filtered, what remains is speech that has actual purpose, and the person who only speaks with purpose develops something that the constant talker never can: genuine authority. Because authority is built on signal-to-noise ratio, the person who speaks rarely and accurately is trusted more than the person who speaks constantly and approximately. Their words are assumed to have weight because they have never been cheap, and their silence, the space they maintain where others fill with words, is understood by the people around them as information, not emptiness, thought, careful thought, happening below the surface that will eventually produce something worth hearing. The third layer, building from evidence, not declarations. The quiet person does not build their reputation through what they say about themselves. They build it through what they consistently do, and allow the pattern of that doing to speak without being announced. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive part of the architecture, because we live in a world that rewards self-promotion. The person who claims expertise loudly is often taken more seriously, initially, than the person who simply demonstrates it, but only initially, because the pattern always becomes visible over time. The person whose reputation was built on declarations will eventually be tested, and the test will reveal whether the declaration was accurate. The person whose reputation was built on consistent evidence has already passed the test, repeatedly, before anyone was watching closely enough to evaluate it formally. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." This is the instruction, not describe the person you are becoming. Be that person, consistently, in the unobserved moments, until the accumulation of evidence makes the description unnecessary. The person who works on their craft for an hour every day before anyone else is awake will not need to announce their dedication after 2 years. The dedication will be in the work itself. The person who holds their standards consistently, who is the same in every room, who does not shift their values based on who is watching, will not need to explain their integrity. It will be in the pattern of their choices. Build from evidence. Let the evidence accumulate quietly, and allow the accumulation to do the announcing when it is ready. The fourth layer, the complete independence of internal motivation. The final and most demanding layer of the architecture is the one that makes all the others sustainable. It is the layer that answers the question, why do you continue when no one is watching and nothing is confirming that the work matters? The person who cannot answer that question, who has no internal motivation independent of external confirmation, will eventually stop, not from weakness, from the absence of fuel, because external motivation is a consumption model. You consume the praise, the recognition, the validation, and then you need more. And when the supply runs out, as it always does, there is nothing left to run on. The Stoics built a different model. They located the motivation inside the values themselves, not "I work hard because people will recognize my effort," but "I work hard because I value capability, because I have committed to becoming a certain kind of person, because the integrity of the effort is the point regardless of what it produces for me externally." This is not a comfortable motivation. It is not warm or encouraging in the way that praise is, but it is stable in a way that praise never is, because it does not depend on anyone else to be present. It is available in the early morning when no one is watching. It is available in the difficult stretch when no progress is visible. It is available in the moments of doubt and exhaustion that will always arrive, and that will always expose with complete clarity whether the motivation was borrowed from the outside or built on the inside. Build it on the inside, not because recognition is bad or because other people's appreciation is not valuable, but because a life that depends on recognition for its fuel is a life that can be switched off by anyone who controls the supply. And the quiet person, the person with genuine power, does not allow anyone else to control their supply. The architecture complete. 4 layers, each one built on the one before it, each one making the others more sustainable. The pause, so that reaction does not override reason. The economy of speech, so that words carry weight and silence carries meaning. The evidence over declarations, so that reputation is built on the substance of consistent action rather than the performance of it. The internal motivation, so that the work continues regardless of what the external world provides or withholds. When these four layers are in place, the person who has built them moves differently, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the specific quality of presence that you have noticed in the people you most respect. The quality that does not announce itself, the quality that is simply there, in the composure under pressure, in the precision of the words, in the consistency of the actions, in the stability that does not waver when the environment becomes difficult. That quality is built, piece by piece, in the quiet, through specific, daily practice choices. It is available to you, not as a sudden transformation, as an architecture that begins with the next choice you make and deepens with every choice after that. Before we close, I want to name one final thing, because everything we have discussed, the pause, the silence, the quiet work, the internal motivation, ultimately serves a single purpose: not power over others, power over yourself. The Stoics were not interested in dominance. They were interested in freedom, the specific freedom of the person who is no longer controlled by impulse, by the need for approval, by the reactions of others, or by the conditions of the environment. The freedom of the person who has built something inside that is genuinely theirs, and that no external circumstance can reach. That freedom does not announce itself. It is simply present, in the quality of the life being lived, in the consistency of the character being expressed, in the quiet dignity of the person who has nothing to prove because they have already built what they came to build. That is the destination. The path is the practice, and the practice begins now. If this resonated, if you are ready to move from understanding these principles to actually building the architecture they describe, the Master Your Mind program is the structured path for doing that work. It gives you the complete framework, the daily practices, and the philosophical depth to turn these ideas from things you have heard into things you have become. The link is in the description. When you are ready to build, it is there. And if this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and stay committed to the path of self-mastery. Every single day on Master Your Mind, we bring you the ancient wisdom that builds stronger, wiser, more unshakable human beings. This is not passive viewing. This is training. I will see you in the next video.